Hey everyone, it's Alexi Uzas here from Exile Accelerator. In this video, I'm going to give you a look under the hood of my production company, Exile Productions, and show you how we manage a slate of films. Now, before I get started, I want to let you know that spots have opened up for our Producing Accelerator program that helps filmmakers finance and produce their films consistently so that they can start to build a career in the film industry. So if you're interested about learning more about that program, you're going to want to stick around until the end of this video. And for the best filmmaking advice, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video. Okay, so let's jump into it. The way that I'm gonna do this is take you through every single film that we have on our slate right now, show you where it's at in the production process, and then give you a bit of detail about what we're doing to manage that project during that stage of production. So I've got an image here that gives you a bit of an understanding of the films that we have on our slate, as well as where they're at in the production process. So as you can see, we start at development, we go through finance, pre-prod, prod, post-production, festival circuit, marketing, distribution, and then collections, which is where we're basically just managing any royalties that are coming in for the film. Now, the obvious one in this image that's missing is pre-production and production, and that's because of COVID, right? So right now, I live in Melbourne, in Australia. Our city has been in lockdown for some time, so we're actually unable to get any films into pre-production or production. So that's why you'll see that gap there. Usually we'll try and have at least one film either in pre-prod or production. That's not always the case. And obviously when I was just starting out, really I was only doing one film a year. So it certainly wasn't the case that I always had a film in pre-prod or production. Before I launch in and run you through each of these films and where they're at, I do want to just make it clear that, it's taken me probably 5.5 years now to build up a slate of films. And really when I was getting started, like I said, it was just starting working on one film a year. So I don't want you to look at this if you're just starting out and kind of get daunted about it and think that you need a huge slate of films. You absolutely don't. If you've watched my videos and you know anything about my approach, I really do advise filmmakers to focus on one project at a time, particularly when they're starting out. So with all that said, let's jump into it. Okay, so we're gonna start from the end of the production process and work backwards from there. So the first two on the list are Plague and West of Sunshine. And you can see next to the film title, I've got the year that the film was released, just so you can see what the timeline looks like for each of those films. So when you're in the collection stage, you've really passed through every stage of the production process. And so really your role as the producer of that project is to follow up with any distributors or sales agents who have the rights to your films, the distribution rights, and who are still exploiting those rights. And the reason that you're following up with them is that every quarter or every half year, they should be reporting to you, showing what the film has made for that quarter or for that reporting period. And so sending you a report. From there, you'll usually generate an invoice that you send to them, and they'll be paying you those royalties. Then from there, what you need to do as a producer is look at whether you need to make any payments to investors, to any cast and crew for deferred fees, if there are any recoupable marketing expenses. So at that point, you're looking at your waterfall and you're looking at where that money that's coming back to the production company then needs to be dispersed. So the way that we usually do this is we just have a spreadsheet that details our waterfall, details who needs to be paid in what order and how much they need to be paid, so that when we receive money as a production company, we can just plug that total figure into the spreadsheet and then see who needs to be paid. From there, we just make any payments, and that typically, that process doesn't take very long. And so then kind of our job is done for that film for that reporting period. Now, one thing to note is that we're still always on the lookout for different ways to be able to exploit the film. So whether it's speaking to distributors at different markets or festivals, or looking at what new platforms might come up, even though these films are now a few years old, we are still always trying to keep our ear to the ground to see if there is any way to keep exploiting those films' rights. Okay, so next is the marketing and distribution stage, and you can see that 3 out of the 4 films in this stage are also in the festival stage, and that's because those films have either just been released or are going to be released in the near future. And so when you're at that stage of distribution, you're also leaving your options open with the festival circuit, and that's why those 3 films, while they are technically in the marketing and distribution stage, we're still submitting those films to festivals, and we're still being open about submitting and accepting any offers that we get to play at a festival. So just starting with the top one, which is Greenlight. So that is a film that has kind of gone through the festival circuit now. It's out the other end, and so it's just in the marketing and distribution phase. That film is with an international sales agent, so they're handling the worldwide rights to the film. The film was released in cinemas at the end of 2019. And so what's happening now is, in Australia, we're still trying to get it onto a streaming platform. We've actually done that deal recently. So it's going to be on one of the major streaming platforms in November. So we recently delivered the project to that platform. What we're also doing is, because the film hasn't sold extremely well internationally, we're now looking at putting together a marketing campaign and an advertising campaign so that we can try and drive traffic to a TVOD site. So that's transactional video on demand. So things like Amazon Prime and Vimeo on demand. So we're going to try and drive traffic to both those sites to try and generate revenue for that project, not just in Australia, but now in places like the US and the UK. And again, that's just because the film didn't sell as well as we hoped internationally. And so we're now looking at exploiting those specific rights. So we had an open kind of discussion with our sales agent. They were happy for us to do that. And so that's the next stage, because from our end, we want to keep trying to exploit the film. We want to still try and generate revenue for the project, and of course, try and pay back our investors. For the other 3 projects, Paper Champions is currently in release, so it's going to be released in November. It's getting a small cinema release, and then it's going to have an online release. That also has just been picked up by a major streaming platform. That hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to be announced soon. So our job as producers on that project, because we're not distributing the film, there's an Australian distributor that's handling that release. Our job really is to support the marketing and PR efforts of the film. And so that's what we're doing at this stage. We haven't sold the international rights to that project to a sales agent. So as the producers, we've gone through the process of pitching it to sales agents. We haven't had any major offers for the project. So what we're looking at doing now is handling the international sales ourselves. So we've managed to secure a UK deal for the project that's going to get announced soon. And we're looking at also exploiting some rights in the US. So some of those ancillary rights, because we have received some offers. So this is, like I say in a lot of my videos, the ideal scenario is you have a international sales agent on the project, and they're the ones that are managing those deals. But in a case where you can't do that as a producer, it's still on you to try and exploit the rights to the film and generate as much revenue as you can for the project to try and pay back your investors. So that's where we're at with with that project, going really well in Australia, not going as well internationally, but we're doing everything that we can now to exploit those rights. The other two films, How Do You Know Chris and The Art of Incarceration. So How Do You Know Chris is a film that I'm EPing, but we're also distributing. So that's getting a cinema release in Australia in December. So at the moment, we're basically just sending out all the marketing material to the cinemas and getting ready for that release. And The Art of Incarceration is a film where we're EPing and also helping with the distribution. And so we had a number of cinemas booked for that film, but due to COVID, we decided to delay the film's release. So that's going to get released in March. So there's not a lot to do for that project right now. It's kind of on hold because we'd done a lot of the work leading up to the release, but then we had to delay it. So even just in that marketing and distribution stage, you can see that each of those films are actually at very different stages. And our role as producer or as an EP is also very different at each of those stages. So the next project is a project called The Siege, which is a project that actually came across my desk during COVID. And it's a film that had already been shot, but they haven't started post-production. So the filmmaker is looking for funding to fund post-production and then be able to take the film out and distribute it. So our role in that project is to help secure distribution for the project. So we've already got some offers from an international sales agent where they're willing to put up some money against the international rights to the project. We're currently in talks with different distributors in Australia. So what we're trying to do is put together the distribution for the project and ideally either come up with enough money through distribution advances to finish the project, or look at applying to the producer's offset, which is a tax rebate in Australia, to try and finance the film in that way and ideally have a little bit more money to finish the project at a really high level. But this is a really exciting project. It's something that's a commercial project, which is why we've been able to, even at this stage, without even showing a finished film, secure some offers from sales agents and distributors. So yeah, our role as a producer right now, or actually as an EP, so we're going to EP the project, is to help the filmmaker finance the post-production component of the project and then help them as they move through the marketing and distribution phase. Okay, so like I said earlier, there are no films that we have in pre-production or production. So the next two films on our slate are in the financing stage. And those films are Voices in Deep and Slant. So Voices in Deep is a film that we have financed, but what we're doing at the moment is actually trying to seek some additional finance to help with some of the costs associated with COVID, and also just to help us decrease some of the gap financing that we have in the finance plan right now. So the way that we're doing that is we've applied for some additional funding from a festival, and that would make up about 10% of our Australian spend of the film. And we're also putting together another strategy to go out to raise some private investment. So on that project, while it is financed, what we're trying to do right now is just bring down the gap finance that we have in the finance plan, because we now have the time. We pushed the project out from October this year to May. So we've got a bit of time now to kind of go back and look at the finance plan and see if we can make it a little bit stronger. The other thing that we're doing is the film set in Greece. Greece originally had a 35% location rebate that we actually were successful in getting. Since we applied for and received that 35%, they've actually increased it to 40%. So what we've just done in the last week is we've withdrawn our application for 35%, and we're about to apply for the 40%. So that is a project where we're really kind of just making tweaks to the finance plan now that we have a bit of time between now and May to get that film ready for production. Slant is a film that we're co-producing, and all the finance has been raised other than the tax rebate in Australia. So we applied for that a couple of weeks ago, and we're just waiting to hear about the result of that project. So that's something that, there's not too much for us to do right now other than kind of wait to see what that decision is. And of course, answer any questions that we have from the producer's offset department. Okay, so last but not least, the projects that we have in development and that we're working on with other filmmakers or other creatives to get ready to move into the financing stage. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that our development slate is very small. And this is something that I speak about often and I advise filmmakers to do. But as you can see, it is something that I live by. So I don't believe in having like 20 projects in development because I feel that it's very hard to focus on multiple projects at a time and to have those projects get any real traction. So for that reason, we keep our development slate very small, and we're very picky, or we're very, we take a lot of time to decide which projects we're going to get on board with. But then once we do, of course, we focus on those 100%. So the films that we have in development right now, there's actually no specific films. So as you can see, I've got finance model there. And what that means is because of the recent changes that have been made to the producer's offset, we've actually had to kind of re-strategize and think about what other types of projects that we're going to make moving forward or past the 1st of July 2021. And so that's something that we're working on now with our key collaborators and really trying to come up with a model, not just a finance model, but a creative model that is going to work for these new rules. And so we're pretty close to kind of deciding on what that model is going to be. And so I don't want to give you too much details yet before it's fully finalized, but that's where we're at with that. We're kind of putting together the bones of the finance model. We're having chats to people about what the right types of films might be in terms of genres, themes, those sorts of things, like what are the elements that we need to be able to make those films, films that can be financed, can be commercial, but that we believe can also be of a high quality and can be films that do achieve critical acclaim as well. So that's where we're at on the film front. And then we have one TV project in development right now. That's something that's new to us, but it was a real goal for us this year to kind of start moving into TV. So we've teamed up with a great writer and creator who's working on a project right now. And what we're doing is basically putting together the pilot episode. So he's writing the pilot episode, we're providing some feedback, and we're putting together an application to apply for development funding from one of the agencies. At the same time, we've kind of made the decision that even if we don't get that funding, we're going to try and shoot the pilot or go out and pitch the project in any case. So we're putting together a lookbook, and we've already put together a budget and a finance plan to show how we'd be able to finance that pilot episode. And so that's it on the development front. That's all we have going on right now. And like I said, my advice to filmmakers is keep that development slate small, really take your time to decide which projects you're going to get involved in, and then once you get involved, commit 100%. So that's it for this video. Hit the like button if you liked the video and subscribe to this channel. Also leave some comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought. Provide any feedback. I'd love to hear about what your slate looks like. And of course, if you wanted to discuss any elements of my slate, feel free to leave those comments and I will get back to you on them. As I mentioned earlier, spots have opened up for our Producing Accelerator program. So if you're interested in seeing if your project is the right fit for that program, you're going to want to head to the link in the description where you can set up a time to speak to either me or a member of my team, and we'll be discussing with you and working out whether your film is the right fit for the program. And don't forget to check out these videos next on how to up your filmmaking game.